Why is it that my home did not sell? Why is it that my home did not sell in 2025? Hey, it's Ryan Hodge, your broker owner at the realty firm in London, Ontario. And here is another video in my series of informative sessions that are designed to support you inside of the London and St. Thomas real estate market. Sandra and I have been selling real estate for nearly 20 years. We own the realty firm. We are a highly productive group of real estate agents inside of our markets, and we're a multi-office market company. And we currently operate at the number one level in terms of an independent brand performance across southwestern Ontario. And as we roll into 2026, a lot of people have a question, why didn't my home sell in 2025? Why is it that, we see homes down the street that are selling or in our neighborhood that are selling, but ours didn't? And I don't want you to be too concerned, but I want you to be informed. And if you like the content that I'm sharing on this channel, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to continue to provide updated and informative, relevant information for you, whether you have another real estate agent of choice or not, whether you are seeking to buy or sell now, later, down the road, never. My purpose is to always serve and support members of the London and St. Thomas real estate community and community as a whole. So, number one question that people ask is, why didn't my home sell? And when this happens, I want to take you through a little bit of informative information that's going to provide you with some insight. Okay. In a hot market, so the market that we are no longer in. Okay, right now we're in more of a balanced or buyer's market, but in a hot market, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, those 5 years were the hottest markets that London and St. Thomas has ever seen inside of real estate, at least since I've been doing business. In markets like that, really about 75% of all homes sell, 25% do not. When a market transitions, such as interest rates increase, inventory starts to go, up versus, a lack of inventory. There's much more supply than there is demand. There's a lot more choice. Okay. And when a market is in more of a balanced or buyer's market, really only about 50% of all homes actually sell during that time period. On average, historically, this is empirical real estate data. So what it tells us is that 1 out of every 2 homes is selling right now. And if you watched my last video on this page, you'll see that I went over all of the market stats to indicate. So why is that? It's simple supply and demand, number one, but also it's really important to understand that in a market like this, you need to be very, very strategic with how you go about selling your property. In all of my years, and I share that last year, even in the market that was, Sandra and I did not have one single home that expired, meaning that we didn't have a home that we listed that went all the way through to the end of the listing agreement and did not sell. Okay. In all of my years, what I can tell you is that you want to understand timing of the market. You want to understand what goes into selling a property. And I don't think it's necessarily what everybody thinks. You also want to have an experienced professional that takes different approaches to value. And that will be something that I talk more and more about as we go through the year and giving you insights on how to value your London, St. Thomas, Ontario home. So when we look at insights into getting an experienced agent, there's an age-old myth that agents a lot of the time will say, I have 25 or 30 or 40 or 50 years in the business. What I share is who cares? The average realtor across North America last year sold less than 5 homes. Okay. So even if you have somebody that sold 5 homes, year after year, over a 20-year career, that's really only 100 home sales. And in different markets, that's not a lot. That to me is a big problem in the industry, that you have very inactive agents that are going out and talking to people about the value of their home. For years, Sandra and I were involved in over 100 transactions per year. And as a company, with a company of over 100 licensed real estate professionals, on average, we sell upwards of 1,000 homes per year, each and every year. We've been involved with billions of dollars in real estate transactions. So experience is something that is critical. I'm not sharing that to toot my own horn or to say I'm better than anyone. There are agents that, do not sell or have not sold as much real estate as perhaps I have, that have a great, tremendous experience in terms of, pricing and valuing homes. But my number one concern is that most agents only take one approach to value, and that's comparable properties. Okay, they're just looking at what home is available down the street or what home may have sold in the area. What they're not looking at is taking different approaches to value, such as looking at specific data, such as what is your assessed value, incorporating a proven and predictable multiplier to that value. That's one approach. And adding a certain amount or a certain percentage based on what's going on in the market. That's one approach to value. The second approach to value would be what your purchase plus appreciation minus depreciation, along with the percentage of contribution value. Okay, so purchase plus appreciation and contribution value is a second approach to value. The third would be looking at square footage and average square footage for homes in your area. Fourth, comparable sales, not looking at what's active on the market, but what has actually sold in your area. Okay, anybody can put their house up for sale for whatever they want. What we're looking at is sold data because that's going to give us some key performance indicators to what's happening in your neighborhood. And fifth, rare, but it is possible you could have an actual appraisal done. See, when somebody comes into your home and they say, your property should sell at X amount of dollars, and they're just looking at one house that may have sold down the street or a few homes that have sold in the area, that's not going to give you enough information to make an informed decision. And quite frankly, if you're just looking at the house or the neighbor's house that may have sold, I really challenge you to think a little bit differently at that approach. What you want is to develop a real theme of, what approaches to value can be taken to sell a home. And when you start to get 3 or 4 proven approaches to value that are sharing, a lot of insight on, what people can expect, it's important to take that information seriously. Because what you know is that most buyers are going to be coming through your property. And if they're working with a decent real estate agent or professional, that professional, and there's over 2,000 agents in the London St. Thomas board, that professional is going to have access, and that buyer is going to have access to the exact same information that I just went through with you. And when they go to offer on your property or when they go to consider an offer, if all of that information is in front of them, it's important to recognize that that's probably what is, the real key indicators on what they're basing their offer on. And usually there, can be a bit of a gap where, the buyer is looking for a bit of a deal, the seller is looking to obtain maximum value, which is understandable on both sides. But what we want to look at is where does fair market value based on all of these different approaches really set the tone for what you can expect. And it's not to say that you can't get a little bit more with the right marketing approach or the right strategies, but you also want to look at the timing in terms of how long you're allowing that house to sit. When you look at, the 43 days median in terms of what's on the market, or should know that within 30 days, you really want to have 8 to 10 showings, hint of an offer, or a sold home from the time that you list the property to the time that it actually sells. Again, that doesn't mean that you're moving on that date, but you want to have that data to say, are we getting enough qualified people through that are pre-approved for financing, that are qualified to purchase the home? We're getting good buyers through that are giving feedback or making an offer or at least giving some information to allow us to make an informed decision if for some reason we decide to adjust the pricing. Okay, the other thing too is if your agent is coming to you and saying, you've got to drop the price, you've got to drop the price, are they taking those approaches to value to justify their position? Have they gone over every single thing that they've done to market your property, not only inside of our local market, but what they're doing to market it to outside of the market, specifically to the Toronto area? We have had such an uptick in out-of-town buyers over the last 5 to 10 years that it's important that people are targeting your home to those markets as well. So when you start looking at the approaches, you can start looking at the timing. how long it's taking. You can start looking at, what approaches to value and price in your home were really given. Was there really enough research done and enough data provided to you to make an informed decision about what you should expect in today's market? Or are you looking at, the possibility that, the marketing and the promotion just really isn't, doing what it's supposed to be to get more eyeballs on your property, to get more people into your home? And in future videos, I'm going to share some of the strategies that you don't necessarily need to sell your property that over years and years, a lot of agents use, but it might not be for the reasons that you think. Again, it's Ryan Hodge with the Realty Firm here in London, Ontario. Sandra and I own the Realty Firm, Southwestern Ontario's #1 leading independent brand performer in 2025. And we're here to provide you with information and value every single week inside of our marketplace. We know that it's a different market right now. We want to be an available choice for you to get relevant content and information from. So if you do appreciate this, please like and subscribe to this channel, and we will connect real soon.